Jujutsu Kaisen follows the story of a boy named Yuji Itadori as he's thrown into a world of sorcerers and curses in a never-ending loop of extermination and war between the two. But there is one arc that decides to break away from our focus of Yuji and head into the past. This arc follows Satoru Gojo and his youth as a student at the same sorcerer school that Yuji currently attends. This arc being the Hidden Inventory arc. Here, we see Gojo and his best friend Geto own a reputation for being the strongest duo, and face a challenge that ends in their absolute failure. This failure defining the trajectory of their lives from that point onward. Gojo takes the opportunity to use this failure to become better, and Geto uses it to confirm his hatred of non-sorcerers. As we know, all of these events have led up to Geto being possessed by kenjaku, and Gojo becoming the strongest sorcerer of the modern era, eventually falling to Sukuna, the strongest of the Heian era. You can blame Geto's downward spiral for essentially being the first domino to fall, leading to Gojo and Geto's eventual deaths, but I believe that there's potential that things went wrong before this, and that maybe Gojo could have potentially become somebody who could surpass Sukuna under different circumstances. In a way, this video has multiple purposes. To display and understand Gojo's mindset in comparison to the other strongest, why Gojo couldn't and shouldn't have beaten Sukuna here, and lastly, for you to enjoy it. With that being said, let's get into it.
Let's get into it, baby.
When we are first introduced to Gojo and Geto, they're introduced to the viewer as a duo, and it's implied that they see one another at the very least relative to each other in strength. As Geto even challenges Gojo to a fight when they were arguing with one another, or how they both refer to their duo as the strongest. Gojo was born and raised as a sorcerer who had an equal, and someone he knew could be on the same level as him. And I believe that Geto's existence made Gojo believe that it's possible that he could have an equal, and maybe someone that can even surpass him.
And that perception right there is what divided them, though. Equality. I'm sorry, like for me, and I'm a very optimistic person in this society right now that I'm living, talking to you guys in the society, in the jujutsu society. Excuse me. It's just not. It's nothing more than a fantasy. Like you feel me? Like, and I believe in like the unthinkable, the impossible. It's just really, it's a really thin line. It's very tight to have someone as your equal, because at the end of the day, it's like, it's human nature. If someone's evolving and your equal's evolving, you guys are evolving into different things. Like what makes y'all considered equal? And what makes y'all equal is y'all both kind of accepting that I'm a peak because I want to be equal to you, and I'm a peak because I want to be equal to you. That means you're able to cut off your evolution and stagnate. You feel me? Which is impossible, because as a human, the whole life experience is to evolve. But let's get into the video anyway, though. Let him talk.
Here. This is not to say that Geto was truly an equal to Gojo strength-wise, but he was strong enough to keep up with him, and this was enough for Gojo. I believe that that's what the part of the hidden inventory opening showcasing both of their combat potential represents. With it showing Geto and Gojo connecting through their high five, yet you see Geto beaten up and Gojo in perfect health, it displays that they have the same amount of efficiency as sorcerers before Gojo's awakening. But Geto still has a good amount of trouble in the same situations that Gojo could handle with ease. After everything with Tochi happens, Geto eventually becomes a curse user and challenges the entire world, resulting in his death. These events result in Gojo naturally moving on to refining the strength of the future instead of focusing on himself, and this is all thanks to the modern era that he lives in, where allies are natural and constant battle is not. So of course, Gojo was more prone to being exposed to the value of friendship and comrades. He never had to worry about teams of strong sorcerers constantly attacking him as Sukuna did in the Heian era, and this circles back to Kenjaku, whose primary goal is to create.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying, it's evolution. He just said it, Sukuna lived in an age where there wasn't no teams, it was just like constant warfare. Who was the strongest man of all time? Even in our lifetime, going back to like the Vikings in medieval times, who's the strongest warrior, the swordsman, the strongest Viking? Dominance. Who's the greatest man? Now we're in the era of what's the best team? Who's the best team player? And it's like it starts to get desensitized throughout the years and ages. You feel what I'm saying? got people like Yuta who's making his pact and his strength is based off a loved one, which is not a bad thing. Whereas Sukuna, he built his strength off of just his strength alone, individuality. It's crazy. Mind you, I don't read the manga. This is only 3 minutes into the video and I'm already unpacking. It's crazy, dog.
Create a being that surpasses both Gojo and Sukuna by using the Culling Game, a never-ending battleground as a foundation to breed this monster that would change the entire world with its appearance. This Culling Game was meant to replicate the world of Heian in its never-ending battle. If the modern era was capable of producing anything relative to Sukuna, do you think Kenjaku would have felt the need to create the Culling Game to replicate the Heian era in the first place? The modern era was simply too peaceful, and this peace allowed for sorcerers such as Gojo to live lives that didn't revolve around battle, becoming the strongest, or just simply surviving. So it's valid reasoning to say that Gojo never really felt the need to continue training once he got to a certain point.
He peaked. Are you the strongest because you're Satoru Gojo, or are you Satoru Gojo because you're the strongest? His ego perception destroyed him. You're Satoru Gojo because you're the strongest. You became arrogant. Your flaw, because you felt the need that, well, since I'm already the strongest and no one's gonna step to me, I don't really have to train anymore. I'm already the best, and that's gonna stay like that for as long as I live because I'm the best. That's where you messed up at. Evolution is meant to happen. You will be challenged. Your time will come. Death will come. So until then, keep training. You can't beat death. Death is inevitable. So you gotta keep training. You gotta keep evolving.
Point of his life between the hidden inventory and present day. Something interesting to point out when it came to his battle against Sukuna is that all the techniques that Gojo pulled out for the first time against Sukuna were either techniques he learned as a child or techniques that he learned on the spot. There wasn't some huge maximum technique that we were expecting him to have, or anything beyond new applications of the Limitless that he's never felt the need to utilize until now. The appearance of Megumi and how Gojo was aware of the tie between the 6 Eyes and the 10 Shadows user may have also played a role in Gojo believing that he wasn't going to be this unbeatable deity forever, and that he'd be surpassed by somebody in the future, eventually. These thoughts swirling through Gojo's mind, coupled with the trauma of Geto's loss, directed most of his actions.
So it's crazy because like that's what Gojo wanted basically, which is not a bad thing. You know what I'm saying? So he's a great teacher, but at the cost of him peaking. It's crazy, bro. It's really crazy, bro. I mean, Gojo kind of manifested like, yo, like, since I'm not, you feel me, doing my thing, you feel what I'm saying? Someone in the future will come, basically take over my position, and I'll be able to basically live with someone being better than me. You're just passing up the throne. You're not even trying to maintain your throne. You're not trying to, like, you don't want to try anymore. Like, you just plateaued. He chose to stagnate. He wanted to find an equal so bad that he stagnated. You're not going to ever have an equal if you stagnate. You need to keep evolving, meaning there would never be equality, my guy. And Gojo is aware of that because he saw what happened to his best friend, and that's still not enough. The ego, bro. It's crazy. And I feel that, bro. Like, when it comes to this anime stuff, like, I know, I know what I'm talking about. I know nothing, but I just know, bro. It's crazy.
Or manifesting such
Wait,
a
before you
future.
page again, you got this? Appreciate you again.
This future that could replicate the best times of his life as a student and could prevent or overcome the appearance of the solitude he's been battling forever. With the appearance of such a generation, maybe even his solitude can be removed. As Gojo even says in a flashback within chapter 220, I will foster a strong and intelligent group. I won't leave anyone alone. This quote states the obvious, but I believe how the panels show Gojo's face, zoom into his eyes, and then we see both Gojo and Geto being seen together is supposed to display a double meaning. The first layer of this sequence being what Shoko sees when she sees Gojo, and the second layer focusing into Gojo's eyes, and once the viewer looks into his eye close enough, they see that Gojo sees him and Geto as he says that he'll never leave anyone alone again. The solitude of Satoru Gojo can be analyzed for a long time, but to wrap this up, it troubles him and haunts him to no end. This solitude was misinterpreted by Gojo due to the circumstances of the past and the appearance of Geto, someone who made him grow into a different kind of person than one who only cares for strength in their own pleasure. This is in stark contrast to Ryoma and Sukuna. Sukuna comes from the Heian era where battle is almost never ending, and is another wielder of the title of the strongest. And along with this title came solitude.
And that's why for me, like I think Gojo is lit. For me, I'm not caught up on the manga, but going off just logic and ideals, that's why Sukuna. I don't know who won, but that's why Gojo will die. Sukuna, since he was always in a survival mindset. He was constantly training and evolving, constantly training and evolving. Where Gojo was living life like just cool and regular. RJ, I appreciate the follow, my guy. Hi, how you doing? You feel me? Where he was just chilling, living life like I'm the best. I don't gotta train no more. Sukuna didn't have time to rest. He didn't have time to, cause battle was never ending. So he was always just working and working and working and working. Feel me? Hard work beats talent when talent fails to work hard. And shout out to the anime again. They show us how us humans work and how what it is. For me, you can have all the talent you want. If you're not working just as hard as the next person that doesn't have no talent, it is a waste of talent, bro. Work, work, and work, and work, and work.
Sukuna has dealt with the same solitude that Gojo once had, but he's never experienced anybody or anything he'd consider to be an equal. The concept of such a thing does not exist for him. Even when it comes to Gojo, the quotes of Yorozu go through his mind. It first seems as if he believes that Gojo could potentially be his equal, but even with the recent chapters, it seems as if in hindsight, it was just reinforcement towards his true nature. This quote irritates him so much, only due to the fact that he believes Yorozu misunderstands and even underestimates his own emotional and mental awareness. Sukuna's self-awareness is truly refined and unparalleled to those around him. It's as if he's never even pondered his own solitude in the first place. I believe what reinforces this more is the very answer that Kashimo receives from Sukuna when they finally confront one another. Kashimo asks Sukuna whether Sukuna was born the strongest or if he became the strongest. And Sukuna simply says, "I'm unsure. I was unwanted and that's about it." I may be overanalyzing it, but I believe that this is a huge indication of Sukuna's awareness, personality, and wisdom. Whereas people like Gojo
that window.
Do these dumbass niggas.
Is it good? I'm trying to break this video down, bro. Alright, we're gonna just hop in.
and Sukuna's extremely simple prompts push Kashimo into engaging with him in battle. Sukuna understands no inferences, philosophy, or anything extra, and continues to enjoy the present moment with Kashimo. He communicates to Kashimo and the viewer that this is something he doesn't think about much. He shares the absolute truth of his circumstances, no inferences, philosophy, or anything extra, and continues to enjoy the present moment with Kashimo. The interaction between both Kashimo and Sukuna is perfect. As Kashimo asks Sukuna all of these questions, and Sukuna's extremely simple prompts push Kashimo.
Tell me, is it lonely being the strongest? Do you think the curse of being the strongest is to be alone, wandering endlessly, searching for a place to manifest your power? Damn. Damn. Yeah, that's dark. I mean, everything comes with a curse, though, and like for me, like, and this is the whole idea of like the whole idea of a question. You have a question, there's the answer. I hate when I get like this though, cause like it's like it opens me up. Do you think the curse of being the strongest is to be alone, wandering endlessly, searching for a place to manifest your power? That alone just answered the question. He had a thought, and for me, you won't really know the answer. You feel me? Truthfully, you won't really know the answer. Because it's not true or absolute. It's just nothing more than a thought. And that's what, for me, yeah. You won't really know until you experience it. That's what makes. Damn, I'm not even gonna get too deep, though. Hold on, man. Hold on. Sheesh.
To engaging with him in battle, instead of all of this philosophy, which is essentially meaningless to Sukuna. And to reinforce this whole point, let's take a look at the character of Daito. Random, I know, but when you reread his introduction as a nameless master swordsman with absolutely nobody on his level, being as strong as he is to match cursed Naoya, despite having no idea how to use cursed energy in the first place, is consistent with the same way that Sukuna perceives himself. Daito finally grasps a real blade after his reincarnation, and he can't help but express joy. All those around him feeling nothing but the bloodlust from his blade, and he attempts to cut Naoya with blinding speed, a true display of his self-indulgence. And when Kamo asks who he is, he says this: "Who we are doesn't matter. I hold a katana and cut what I want to cut. Others can think what they want about me." And later on he says, "While you were asking dumb questions, that girl got ahead of me." Daito's character does represent Sukuna in a couple of ways, including his wisdom, and I'm sure that Gege Akatami doesn't have Daito say these exact quotes for no reason. Sukuna never had the people and rivals that Gojo once had, nor did he ever ponder why he could not connect with others, such as both Gojo and Kashimo did. He explains to Kashimo that all of those challengers you've had in your time face you with everything they've had, yet they've never cursed you for slaughtering them. They wanted your recognition in order to understand their worth, and you responded by slaughtering them while pondering how you could care for others despite.
They wanted your recognition. They wanted to know who they were, and you just killed them with your bare hands. I wonder how it is to relate with the rest being compassionate, but if it isn't compassionate, what is it? Nothing. Nothing more than just people just wanting validation. I didn't come here to validate somebody. I came here to cut with my sword. And it's like, damn. Yo, I gotta read this shit, bro. This shit is fucking crazy. Crazy. This whole self-indulgence concept is insane. The quest for just, I don't even say being the strong, it's just, oh my god. It's just, this shit is just so, it's good. It's good. It's freaking good. It's good.
Your strength. If you attempt to understand how you could care for other humans while simultaneously granting the wishes of these humans who challenge you isn't love, then I don't know what is. Sukuna communicates to Kashimo that all of our challengers love us for our strength, and we respond to this love by granting their wishes and accepting their battle.
You're love because we are strong, and we apply to that love.
And this is why he calls him greedy, because Kashimo does everything he possibly can for a challenger, while simultaneously struggling to understand how he can feel empathy for them. Yet, he wants even more. These people gave you their all, and you don't even think about them and who they are once. This was communicated to the audience when we first see Kashimo in the flashback. All of these bodies of his challengers piled up, and Kashimo has his back towards them, not even acknowledging them, and his head down, displaying disappointment. He wants to find some endgame secret through fighting the strongest, Sukuna, who ends up telling him that the relationship between your thoughts and your strength is as simple as that. The battle you give them is enough on your side, and if it isn't, I don't know what is. This is also why Sukuna speaks to his challengers and acknowledges their power and competence as sorcerers, because that's what they came to him for in the first place. He gives them what they truly want, and I believe that this is why Jogo cries when Sukuna does this to him.
Jogo wanted to, like, for me, this is something I broke down in the anime. Jogo wanted to, same thing with the Chimera ants that I mentioned earlier. Jogo wanted to coexist and be considered, he wants to be a human. Now, of course, like in reality, he cannot be a human. He wants to be able to, when I say be a human, being like just able to walk the jujutsu sorcerer world as not seen as a monster or a curse, just living, just walking around, just doing his thing, just living, bro, just existing. You feel me? Sukuna gave him not the validate, no, he just, I want to say validation, I don't know what word to use, but Sukuna just gave him the, yo, you feel me? Listen, you're strong, bro. You feel me? You're strong. And that's what made Jogo human. He was like, damn, wait, hold on. The strongest just called me strong. He let him experience a second of humanism and took him out the game. Gave him what he wanted. Bittersweet ending. I'll let you, Jogo. Straight up. W Sukuna, though.
Jogo, when we first meet him, is very arrogant and holds huge pride in his strength as a curse until he battles with Gojo, shattering it. And it's when he and Sukuna enter a deathmatch, Sukuna questions why Jogo isn't fully realizing himself in this battle, or in other words, using his domain. Jogo says that he'd lose in a battle of domains, and upon hearing this, Sukuna points out that it's because of Gojo shattering this pride he once had, and he states that now things are finally getting interesting. Sukuna, finally displaying interest in Jogo because of this, decides to send him off, and acknowledge his true nature as fire by asking him to engage in a battle with him, and essentially eliminate him using his own nature. With what we know now, I believe Sukuna chose to kill off Jogo as a form of the love he speaks of, by using Jogo's true nature to kill him off. He, in a way, acknowledges and understands Jogo. He sends him off by telling him to stand proud, and Jogo cries in response to this, asking Sukuna, "What's this?" And Sukuna says he has no idea, because he's never experienced loss. I also believe that this is a display of his wisdom in comparison to Gojo. Gojo decides to toy with and mock Jogo whenever they fight, whereas Sukuna is able to understand Jogo through battle and send him off with acknowledgement. Sukuna only displays his interest in Jogo once he understands why Jogo, his current challenger, does not give it his all towards him. Sukuna seems to be at a point of divinity, to where he simply eats when he desires so.
Term of self. Everything's a system of self. Perception. What do you view yourself as? And why do you view yourself as that? And how hard will you go to view yourself as that?
Plays when he desires so, and kills when he needs to. And this is the mindset that only an omnipotent deity can have and successfully execute on. Centuries of existence have resulted into this god that walks among men, and none who possess the strength or wisdom to tell him otherwise. And if they do despite that, then that's their problem. And lastly, Sukuna saying that every human has a unique taste is also another indicator of his intelligence. Whereas Gojo considered every human to be a living being, and Kashimo called other humans pieces of dirt, Sukuna, with all of his wisdom, says that every human is unique, and it's that unique taste that each human has that makes them perfect to devour until he passes away. They all interest him one way or another, except of course Yuji Itadori, who bores him to no end. Whether or not this is an indicator of Yuji being something that isn't human, who really knows? Sukuna's wisdom and intelligence may be why Gojo and Kashimo never fought one another during the time skip, because they were more or less at the same point when it came to their journeys, nor would they ever be able to find an answer in one another. Sukuna serves as a perfect final battle and conclusion for both of these characters, displaying to them why they weren't as strong as him and why they can never be as strong as he was. It also shows that narratively, Gojo could have never finished off Sukuna because Kashimo's character arc wouldn't have been able to be fulfilled by Gojo himself. This is also the purpose of Ryu's character. He's a character who spent all of his time feeling empty due to never finding a worthy opponent, and he constantly speaks of enjoying himself in having this meal, attempting to find satisfaction through others. The moment we believe that this satisfaction has been fulfilled, the very next chapter opens up with Earl referencing Sukuna, surpassing everything that we believe
Aren't those with an overwhelming sense of self and a complete disregard for others?
Sukuna is, by him embodying a natural disaster, an existence that simply exists for what it brings upon the earth and disregards all else that may oppose it, a calamity. And when this warning does come to fruition, Sukuna easily dismantles Ryu, being a clear showcase of not only their strength as sorcerers, but their philosophies, and how Sukuna's philosophy is light years ahead of those who ponder their own existence and greedily feel solitude due to this. With Ryu's analogy of battle being a table of desserts, it's to display two things. The way that Ryu perceives his challengers is unhealthy and may stunt his growth. And maybe I'm reading into this too much, but Ryu says he's finally satisfied with his meal after Yuta. But when an even more appetizing dessert shows up, this being Sukuna, Ryu couldn't help but bring himself to challenge him, even when every fiber of his body told him otherwise, which could be a metaphor for people's unhealthy addiction with desserts and sweets, and how Ryu likely would have never found satisfaction. And finally, looking back at Kashimo's refusal to meet Ryu and asking Kenjaku to tell him about the strongest sorcerer he's ever met, this sorcerer being Sukuna makes the arcs of the Edo period characters come full circle, as we now know that Kashimo was looking for the solution to the problem that only the true strongest sorcerer would possess. Kashimo turning down Ryu was never an implication of their power. I'll even say that Sukuna's omniscience could be why Gege has Sukuna mention both Gojo and Kashimo when going over the quote that Yorozu said to him, and why that same quote pops up in Gojo's death right after Gojo expresses that he wanted to convey his refined body, strength, creativity to Sukuna, and wanted it to reach him. We even see Sukuna's back turned towards Gojo in this panel, which displays Gojo's belief of him never reaching Sukuna in the first place. Gojo even goes on to speak as if he's failed to convey these things to Sukuna, due to Sukuna never going all out. And well, when we see Sukuna later in this chapter, it's shown that he's actually looking directly at Gojo, and with his body completely open, showing acceptance of him. Sukuna does understand Gojo, and he shows that he understands everything by acknowledging Gojo's efforts, and how well he truly did. Sukuna saw Gojo as someone reaching out toward him, and Gojo reached out towards Sukuna in an attempt to end his solitude. And in the end, Gojo may have not completely understood Sukuna, but he was able to at least reach him and be accepted by him. But not once has Sukuna ever reached out or displayed any interest in conveying anything to Gojo. And I believe that this is why Gojo takes note of the fact that Sukuna was fighting very passively.
This whole time, Sukuna's been subtly avoiding using any other curse technique other than the one granted to his domain, even when the interior strength of the barrier lowered after I flipped the internal and external conditions. He didn't try to destroy from the inside, he chose the riskier option.
Passively in their battle, whereas Gojo fought with a lot of style, creativity, and finesse, displaying the amount of fun he was having in the battle, showing that he's finally able to completely cut loose for once, whereas Sukuna fought him in the same way that he's always fought.
Full circle.
I believe that
Full circle. So Gojo's death wasn't never in vain. It put Sukuna back in his same curse of, damn, will I ever be viewed as the strongest? Like, for why am I still the strongest? You feel me? Because it's a full circle. Gojo was stuck in his ways, and he never tried to peek and do that though. When he had to fight Sukuna, he couldn't use the same moves no more. He was forced, because death was at his door, literally in his face. He was forced to literally do all kinds of things that he never done before. New moves, new tricks, and yes, it still got him to death, because Sukuna never really went all out. You feel me? But Gojo had a fun, and he went out with a bang, whereas Sukuna went back to his safer route and then played the riskier option of he never lost, and he never got to fear loss. He never wanted to experience loss. He wanted to just be. He just wanted to just be. He never imagined a life with him losing and him not being the strongest. He always wants to be the strongest, so he wants to live up to it. That's so freaking crazy.
Once, whereas Sukuna fought him in the same way that he's always fought. I believe that this is why Gojo sees himself as inferior to Sukuna at the end of his life. But despite admitting inferiority in the end, he was still accepted by Sukuna and touched him to a point where Sukuna proclaimed that he would never forget him. Gojo may have not ended Sukuna's solitude, but he sure as hell reached him and left the world touching all who have got to meet him, even his greatest enemy. As Gojo once failed his greatest friend, leaving Geto to bathe in complete and dreadful solitude, he silently promised to himself to never commit this same failure again, and he succeeded in this promise with flying colors. Now, this video isn't to knock Gojo and Kashimo, and I personally believe that they were amazing characters with very deep character arcs who put up great fights against someone as powerful as Sukuna. Gege has done a great job with handling these two, and using all the timelines to have these characters come together and have a clash of philosophies and learn from one another, it's very unique. With that being said, I'll wrap up the video here. Thank you so much for listening all the way through. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed, don't forget to like, subscribe, all that for the video. And with that,
I'm about
I'll
to stream.
catch you guys in the next
some
one.
rest.
Have a great.
Yeah, insane stuff. Catch you on the next one, man.